Courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode number 464. I am Andrew in the forum, and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. Joining me as always, my co-host Derek, DV3 in our forum, and also on Twitter at DV3G and DV384. So Derek, before we started recording, connected on Parsec as we often do, you played NBA Full Court Press for the very first time. Thoughts?
Yeah, I had never played this game. My first PC basketball video game was actually NBA Live 98. And then obviously, NBA Full Court Press was, quote unquote, the first ever NBA Inside Drive. It was made by Microsoft. And then obviously they came out with NBA Inside Drive 2000, NBA Inside Drive 2002, 2003, and 2004. You know my love for the 2002 through 2004 inside drives. I love those games. But yeah, this NBA Full Court Press that was released in 1996, it's oddly intriguing to me. It's the isometric camera view. It's the fact that it does have a season mode. The graphics are unique. In my opinion, they're very different from NBA Live. And then obviously, different than like NBA Fast Break 98 or NBA in the Zone, etc. It has some appealing steal and block mechanics that I actually kind of enjoyed during our session, ripping a steal, with two hands, heading down the length of the court and throwing it down and whatnot. The game can get super glitchy. I think you would agree. Random 10-second violations by the computer where they just stand there and let the clock run out. They do the same thing in the half court at times where they'll just stand there dribbling the ball. And then, at the last second, they'll just fire up a shot and it will brick and whatnot. But yeah, really interesting session, fun session, surprisingly. And I'll have to play that game a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm still trying to troubleshoot DOSBox X, which I'm running Windows 98 under a DOS emulator to get that working with sound. It will run it on Windows 10. Strangely enough, for a game released in 1996, I thought it was going to be a 16-bit application and not work under Windows 10. It does, but it doesn't detect a modern sound card, so I've been trying to get it to work with two controllers under DOSBox X and Windows 98. Thought I had it working, not quite there yet, so we were playing without sound, which does make it hard, Derek, when you can't hear the shot clock winding down and the game clock winding down, and of course the great commentary of Kevin Calabro. It is a very intriguing game, as you say. I remember a friend got it back in the day. I was playing Live 96 PC, really enjoying that. But I saw that game when he got it, and of course it has the commentary, which Live 96 didn't have. It's got some presentation elements that Live 96 doesn't have. It has full timeouts and 20-second timeouts. A lot of NBA Live games didn't even represent the two different timeouts, two different lengths of timeouts back in the day. So that was there's a lot of detail in that game, but it is very glitchy, as you said. There's some pretty nifty animations, some pull-up jumpers and spin moves and things like that, but at the same time, a lot of the dunks are very glitchy as it kind of glitches into that from that drive animation into the launch and the dunk, and everyone in the game can dunk, and not a lot of difference between high-end players and those AI glitches, as you said, but it is kind of fun. But one of the things that does bother me, and it was bothering both of us, I know, was the way it has pass is jump for block and rebound on defense, and shoot is switch, and that's just so backwards. It's as I said before we started recording. It's before basketball games really codified the basics of controls, and we saw a lot of weirdness like that back in the day.
Yeah, it was causing us to randomly jump in the backcourt when we were trying to go for steals, or we were pushing the wrong buttons quite a bit. Let's be completely honest. The game was pretty sloppy. I'm just impressed that, I was able to play that game with an Xbox One wireless controller over Parsec with you. I know we didn't have sound because we were playing it on Windows 10 and whatnot, but the fact that we were even able to have a session on it and get it to work, I was impressed with that. Just for our listeners to know, we were using the Pacers. So Reggie Miller, Dale Davis, Travis Best, etc., Rick Smits, and we were against the Pistons. So the Grant Hill, Grant Long, Lindsey Hunter, Joe Dumars Pistons, and we did pull out the win which we all obviously love to do, and we do most of the time when we play on co-op. Best play of the game was a missed three by Reggie Miller, and this happened right at the end of the game, and an offensive rebound by Dale Davis, who did a reverse jam that was super powerful and fun to watch. Some of the animations are pretty cool in that game. I think it's a little limited. We saw the same layup about 15 times. In
that curling, twirling layup, that wannabe layup.
Yeah, and it's not even like a basic layup. It's like a Ricky Davis show-off type of layup. It just happens constantly in that game. When we were talking about it after the game we played, I compared the animations and the player movement in that game to like a modern point and click game, like mouse control. If you've ever seen those RPGs, MMORPGs, etc., that have come out over the last few years, where you'll use it's like mouse control, and you point to a spot and you click, and that's where your character runs to, and he does this kind of pre-planned robotic run and then just stops in the spot where you told him to move to. And that's just kind of how this game moves, if you want like a visual. And I think that, sure, it's primitive, but it still screams NBA action. I think you would agree. With the portraits at the bottom of the screen, whoever catches the ball or whoever you're controlling on defense, it shows their portrait. So whether it's Derek McKee or Reggie Miller, if you're controlling them, their portrait is showing at the bottom of the screen. It has all your stat tracking, all of that stuff. Like you said, Kevin Calabro, who's a legendary announcer, the legendary announcer of the Seattle Supersonics from the 90s. And like, it screams NBA action, and that's what we want. And that's what we wanted at the time. So it is intriguing. I want to play it a little bit more. I want to see how the season mode works and whatnot. But yeah, like you had stated during the session, they definitely made a lot of improvements, with NBA Inside Drive 2002 through 2004. But I do want to point out, you mentioned attention to detail, related to certain things, even with their game in Microsoft's game in 1996. My brother and I said the same thing for the versions 2002 through 2004. There's like stat tracking in that game that would even make some of the newer titles jealous. Stuff that was being tracked back in like Inside Drive 2003 is not even being tracked in NBA 2K23. A lot of attention to detail with the presentation, with the signatures, with the stat tracking, all of that stuff. So Microsoft, with their basketball series, they were known for the details.
Definitely, and as I said, some great details there. The fact that they actually went to the trouble of having full timeouts and 20-second timeouts. That, again, not something they were doing in a lot of NBA lives, even after that. And, of course, the presentation, Kevin Calabro again. It is a hallmark of one of games from that time that didn't quite have the on-court action down, though, is they put a lot of emphasis on those other aspects to really draw you in. That being said, it is a very playable game, despite those quirks, and I'd absolutely be up for playing it again. I do want to try and get it working with the sound properly. I've been trying so hard to get it to work in Windows 10 with the sound, but it just doesn't seem to want to talk to modern hardware. Not surprising. I'm surprised that it actually runs at all in Windows 10, but if I can get it working under that virtual machine, with a virtual Windows 98 machine with sound and both controls, and or even, look, I'm fine playing with the keyboard. If I can get a controller working for you so that you can I can use the keyboard. So that's the thing. Yeah. Well,
Andrew, what we could do is, remember, I was trying to use a Xbox One wireless controller. I could always try to plug in, like, do a wired Xbox 360 controller, like a Rock Candy controller, or I could use a generic controller, like a Gravis gamepad or something like that. Like, there's things we could try.
Oh yeah, it's mostly the Windows 98 drivers and trying to get it to recognize two different game ports. Basically, I need to go back into the configuration file and see what I've got set up for the virtual hardware there, for the virtual hardwood, if you will. So I'll definitely keep fiddling around with that, see what I can do. Because I'd love to be able to play that game with sound. We can actually post it, and I can do a full screen. You can't can't maximize the window, unfortunately, in Windows 10. I'm surprised you actually were able to see it at all. I'm guessing you're able to see it okay because it was only 640 by 480 and a 1080 display. So.
Yeah, but I'm playing on a 50-inch screen. So
yeah,
that's
it's blown up anyway. Yeah, so.
Yeah, exactly. It's blown up. I had absolutely no issue seeing anything. The only issue that I had, as far as the viewing aspect, was the fact that it was really hard to tell who was using who.
Oh, those player indicators. God, yeah.
The player indicators really hurt that experience because, what you want is just a different color. Like me blue and you red, right? That would be like ideal. Instead, we're both basically white/clear.
Yeah.
For our indicators. And so there were times where I thought I passed you the ball, but it just went to me. There were times when I thought I was dribbling it up the court and it was you. So my player, the one that I'm actually controlling, is just like sitting out of bounds. And then you'll pass it to me because you're trying to be nice. You're like, hey, I'm going to be a team player. And you pass it to me while I'm out of bounds and we get a turnover. That happened under the basket once. So yeah, that stuff hadn't been figured out quite yet, back in 1996 with certain games. I do want to point something out though. I had another Parsec session today with Stildo 33, and we were playing our 94-95 season on NBA 2K19. I just had you watch the highlights from that game. And what a blast. So he's been hosting all season. I was able to give him his sixth loss of the season today. He's 18-6 now. He's using the Orlando Magic. I was using the Heat. And so the Heat have, Glenn Rice, Matt Geiger, Kevin Willis, Khalid Reeves, Baby Jordan, Harold Miner, and whatnot, and Billy Owens on the bench. But we had such a good session. I was able to pull out the W with an inferior team. He had some great highlights with Shaq and Penny. I thought I put up some big dunks with Harold Miner, but I encourage our listeners to check out that video on the NLSC YouTube. It's only about 2.5 minutes in length. So it's a quick watch, but it's a lot of fun.
I love those Baby Jordan dunks, the Harold Miner dunks, that the dunk on Shaq, that baseline twisting dunk. He's got the perfect dunk package in those rosters, and knowing the amount of detail in those mods, those retro season mods that Stildo and company have been made, and of course you're part of that, made for 2K19, just fantastic.
Stildo is very much like you and I. If we're going to work hard on a mod, if like a roster mod, a mod for my league, etc., we're gonna work hard on it so we can also enjoy it on the virtual hardwood. It's not just going to be something that's made for the community and whatnot for them to enjoy. We want to have fun. We love playing the games. So when he's making these mods, he's putting all of that attention to detail in there, not just for the community, because he does release them publicly like the rosters, but so he can have a blast with the rosters, so they are accurate when he uses them, etc. And it's a lot of fun playing against him. I feel really good about being the client all season on Parsec. So he's, like I said, he's been hosting, and it works basically flawless on my end as far as no input lag. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
And speaking of modding, you and I have been doing a bit of work on a mod for Live 96 PC.
So Andrew, back in the day, this is when Andrew and I didn't even know each other. Like, he tried to get portraits in there. I think the community tried to get portraits in NBA Live 96, and there was no success.
Very little success, yeah. And they never really looked great. No.
Yeah. But I found out a method that works. And I showed Andrew that method, and I can actually get a high-quality portrait at NBA Live 96 in the game probably in like 5 minutes using my method. And so I was able to pump out dozens of portraits for this all-time teams roster project that Andrew and I have going on NBA Live 96. And I send them over to Andrew. He puts them in the game, and then he takes screenshots of what they look like in the game. And then if I have to touch them up, if I have to fix something, I'll do it on my end and then send it to him again. But the portraits are coming out awesome. The roster looks great. I know it's a work in progress, but it already looks great. And we're going to have quite a few Parsec sessions using that roster.
It's coming together very nicely. And like you say, you've got that method down. that you can produce these great portraits very quickly, and more. When we started out, you were really still figuring out the method, because the palette, the color palette for the portraits, you do everything right, or appear to, and you import it, and somehow it just gets garbled. Even if you take portrait files from Live 95 and import, because it's the same file format, and export them as a bitmap in that same format and import it into Live 96, it comes out as a black silhouette. Even if you export a portrait from Live 96 files and re-import it again straight back in, it somehow doesn't work. So it is very fiddly. I'm very impressed with how you've been able to work that out and just make these fantastic portraits. It's going to make, even without the portraits, I think the mod could be a lot of fun on the court, obviously, but it comes down to details, just like Full Court Press. You see those details in the menus, it just gets you hyped to play. That kind of detail in mods, in big roster mods, is always so much appreciated. Once we've worked out how to make all those art updates, it's going to be fantastic to have all those portraits in the game. I am still working through all the rosters. It doesn't take too long to add a player in Live 96 and overwrite players in the editor that Tim and Lutz made. Actually, Tim and Brian made that one, and Lutz made the DOS editor. It doesn't take too long because there's not as many ratings to work with. Just going through and overwriting players, you can just change their face in the pre-made heads that NBA Live 96 PC was using. No solid face files, obviously, but it comes together fairly quickly. Still quite a bit of work to do on the benches, but the starters are coming together, and it's already in a state that we could play some demo games for sure.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that and upload some gameplay videos that show the starting lineups in those portraits, to the NLSC YouTube. So I have to use a combination of Photoshop and Paint.net in order to get these portraits to work and be high quality in the game. And there's a setting in Adobe Photoshop where, so like first you have to export the portrait from Paint.net in 8-bit. So bitmap, 8-bit. And then you open up the portrait in Adobe Photoshop and you change, I figured out a method to change it to RGB color and then back to indexed color. And when you change it back to indexed color, it gives you an option to change how many colors you want your bitmap image to be. So it has to be 256 colors or it's not going to work in the game. So I choose 256 colors, and then there's an old bitmap option, and it's called web. And so I choose web, 256 colors, and when I do that, the portrait remains high quality. I export it again, and then I'm able to send it over to you, and usually it looks great in the game. I'd say probably, 90% of the time? When I send you
these days, yeah, very high success rate of. It's just a couple of them with a couple of players that have had some of the older players. It's hard to get good portraits for them, good images for them in the first place, and I think some of the backgrounds also cause a problem. Some of the colors of the backgrounds as well. Right.
He's not talking about the colors behind the player in the original photos. He's talking about the colors in NBA Live 96, the palette, basically. Like the Phoenix Suns is problematic. So I had to change what background I put behind my transparent image of the player in order for it to work for the Phoenix Suns team. But yeah, I'm glad that I figured that out. I've also been making a ton of portraits for the NBA 2K19 fantasy draft roster project. So a lot of those portraits that I'm making, including like the one that I sent over with Vince Carter for the Raptors, I had already made that for 2K19. So basically, it's a matter of using the image that I used for the 2K19 portrait, downsizing it, making it 8-bit 256 color web format, and then, sending it over to you. But for the community, be on the lookout for 2 big releases this year. NBA Live 96 PC all-time teams roster project and the NBA 2K19 all-time fantasy draft rosters.
Very satisfying, isn't it, to be really able to sink your teeth into a project? And of course, I'm also getting close to finishing the 2K10 Added Legends roster. I guess that's all final official roster with Added Legends. I haven't given it a fancy name yet. It's basically what it's going to be. Just a couple more legends to add to that roster and to fix up, because, as I said before, going through the existing legends in the game and the Decade All-Stars, the All-Decade teams, noticing how there were so many copy and paste ratings, how the tendencies were just A lot of them were just at 0. They hadn't bothered to fill it in, so I wanted to fix it up at the same time. So that'll be a lot of fun as well. But March Madness, looking forward to making that a bit of a bigger celebration this year. My articles are also going to be focused on modding for the most part throughout the month, wherever possible. Not completely. I want to focus on other topics as well, but going to have some more modding-related discussion in those weekly features. I'm sure we'll touch on it on the podcast. And, of course, some actual mod releases as well. So that'll be fun.
And to the community, let Andrew and I know what gameplay you would like to see on our social media platforms for the NLSC. We've been uploading gameplay of NBA Live 10, NBA 2K14, NBA 2K19, Live 2005, etc. But we do want to hear from you. What games do you want to see more gameplay of? Because we love connecting on Parsec. We love playing co-op, and we also love variety. So let us know what you want to see for gameplay videos, and we'll get them up there on the NLSC YouTube.
Speaking of the variety, that's actually why I wanted to connect with Full Court Press, because we have been talking about that game before. I thought you had played it back in the day, but I thought, if nothing else, it's going to be a change of pace, because we haven't connected on that one before, which is why I was trying to troubleshoot the gamepad joystick situation in DOSBox X. But yeah, I'm glad we're able to do that. Unfortunately, until we get the sound, until we can get audio working, I don't think we should share any of that footage. Maybe a couple of clips on Twitter just to show off the game, perhaps. But it's hard to make a full feature of that, Derek, is it not, without the full presentation. It loses that effect and doesn't showcase the game how we want to.
Yeah, and also from a quality standpoint, we weren't able to play it on full screen, so it was just this tiny box.
Exactly.
That we were playing
my desktop,
and that would obviously degrade. Right, that would obviously degrade the quality once I tried to blow it up for YouTube or Twitter or anything like that. So yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get it to work with the audio, the controllers, and on full screen and everything, and we'll get you guys some footage.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, nba-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community. So, Derek, this year does mark the 30th anniversary of NBA Jam. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to get any celebrations for that. The license is still held by EA, and they're not really doing anything with basketball gaming at the moment, as we've lamented before. So there's going to be some very unofficial celebrations, hopefully, in the community from people who remember NBA Jam fondly. We're certainly going to get on that ourselves. That will probably include connecting on Fire Edition and other NBA Jam games over Parsec to play. I'm certainly up for that, and I'm sure you are too. But you brought up the idea on Twitter about a new NBA Jam game. Hypothetically, if there was going to be a new NBA Jam game, what would people want to see? And people have responded to that question, as they always do, and we love those responses. Thank you so much. And of course, we have some ideas as well. But yeah, I'd love to have a new NBA Jam game, Derek.
Yeah, my question to the community was, what would you like to see, for gameplay, graphics, modes, customization, etc. And there were a few responses. Thundershack had a great response to it, kind of went in depth on what he would like to see if a new NBA Jam game did come out. I mean, I love the NBA Jam series. I love most of the games that were released under the EA umbrella or Midway. Acclaim was a bit rough, as we know. But yeah, you and I have had so much fun on Road Trip, on NBA Jam on Fire Edition. I had a lot of fun connecting with the community on NBA Jam 2010. And in fact, you and I had a 4-person session on Jam 2010 with the community, and that was a lot of fun. I played NBA Jam for Sega CD a ton. I think that's one of the more underrated versions of that game. And, NBA Jam Tournament Edition was a staple in my household, played a ton of that. And that can be argued as the greatest game in the NBA Jam series. And then, like spin-offs and whatnot, NBA Showtime, NBA on NBC, you know how much I love that game. And I've connected with the community a ton on that, and I played it a lot back in the day. and everything. So, yeah, I would obviously love a new, fast-paced, fun, deep arcade basketball game. I don't think we really got that with NBA Playgrounds and NBA Playgrounds 2, even though my brother and I did enjoy the co-op experiences on those games. We are just overdue for a great arcade basketball game, and who better to do it than NBA Jam and Tim Kitzrow, because you got to bring Tim Kitzrow back too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Like, you can't bring NBA Jam back without him, and he's still so active. I saw him post on social media that they were having like an NBA Jam night
the Bucks
in Milwaukee. Yeah, for the Bucks. And he's standing next to an NBA Jam arcade machine, and a stunt person jumped off of a trampoline over his head and threw it down on him. And Tim used one of his obviously legendary NBA Jam catchphrases, and posed for pictures and all that stuff. So he still loves NBA Jam, and that he would be back.
And I said to him when I interviewed him a few years back that I really appreciated how he was so still flying the flag for NBA Jam, and how it wasn't just a job to him. Obviously, I mean, it was a gig, but he really appreciated being a part of the game's history, its lineage, its legacy, if you will. And he was a great interview. You can go back and listen to that, episode 280. I'll always promote that, Derek, because as you know, that was a very exciting interview for me to do. But you absolutely need to get him back. As far as the game itself, I've been thinking about it. I'd love a new NBA Jam, as I said. I think the problem with a new NBA Jam, for me, and trying to suggest new ideas for it, is that there's obviously incentive to innovate, or even a need to innovate and bring something new to the table, so it's not just the same NBA Jam as before. But at the same time, there's a very winning formula with NBA Jam that all the best games have had, and if you alter it too much, you come up with something that's not true to that Jam spirit and style. So any new mechanics you add need to not take away too much from the existing mechanics, not be overpowering, yet at the same time be a fun new gimmick. And I use gimmick in a more positive connotation in this instance. So it's hard to think of what I would add that's new, but not changing the game and changing the formula so much that when you played it, you're like, oh, this isn't NBA Jam. This is kind of like NBA Jam, but they've added this mechanic. You know what I mean?
The on-court action, the staples of NBA Jam, they do not need to go away in order for the game to still be a success with a new release. As in, we still need the backboard to shatter, right? That's an NBA Jam on Fire Edition awesome trait. It's a trait that they've had in the series before, and you need that. You want the glass to be able to shatter. That fast-paced, reactive play style. The game is super reactive on the sticks. It's basically you press the input and the action happens automatically on the screen. That doesn't need to go away. Being able to do crossovers and dribble and spin moves, you can keep that in there. And, an innovation you could add is maybe you could add size ups to the players, but that's not going to ruin the action. You know what I mean? You could still have the basic dribbling controls and whatnot with the button or with the right stick. Shooting has always felt great in NBA Jam. That doesn't need to go away. The amazing blocks at the rim, all of that stuff, like that stuff can stay. And it will still be super fun on the sticks. It will look great when they're previewing the game. And it should be reviewed well by, the most popular review sites and reviewers. I did actually come up with what I would like to see if a new NBA Jam was released. So I'd like a mode to be in the game that's very similar to Road Trip. I don't think there's a reason why they couldn't bring that back. Something where you have unlockables, where it's still fair to the gamer, where it's not hidden behind microtransactions or anything like that, where you have all of the different challenges, bronze, silver, gold, and then, you have the platinum challenges, etc. So Road Trip, I think, would need to be brought back. I think it would make gamers spend a lot more time on the game because of that mode's depth. And, you can have the online leaderboards. You should have the option to be able to play Road Trip co-op, all of that stuff. But I also think it would be cool if they added a season mode in the game, kind of like what they did with Hoops back in the day, the one with Shaq on the cover. And I think that it would be a lot of fun to do like a season with stat tracking on NBA Jam. And even if it didn't have stat tracking, just, be able to play a season with a team and whatnot, and then go into the playoffs. At the very least, maybe have an option like on NBA Street Volume 2, where you have to play all of the teams and beat them in order to, beat that mode. So either a season mode or like beating all the teams in succession and whatnot. Then I'd also like to see a career mode where you can control one player and progress, something where you could either go in with an existing NBA player or legend and then also have a created or go in with like a created player, and maybe you can do like a face scan and you can get yourself in there. And so it's you that's doing the high flying dunks. It's you that's getting on fire and all of that stuff. And that'd be really cool footage to share, for content creators. Online competition. And I'd like to get your thought on this. Kind of like what they do with my team in NBA 2K23. I know that they have like money challenges for 2K23. Oh, you can win $50,000 or $100,000 or $150,000. I'm not saying there has to be like big like prizes behind it or anything like that, but it would be cool to have like online tournaments and online challenges for a new NBA Jam game, because I think a lot of people would really get into that. And that's something that they're already doing in like NBA 2K, so I don't see why they wouldn't be able to implement that in Jam.
Oh, for sure. And you do need to have that multiplayer experience and that multiplayer, I guess, community aspect, and certainly having tournaments and so forth really is a way to promote that, and that'd be a great way to bring that online aspect to a new NBA Jam for sure. I really do like the idea of having more of a traditional season or ladder mode, kind of like your classic arcade mode, if you will. I know they kind of tried to do that in the first, in Jam 2010, the reboot, having the classic campaign, although it wasn't in that ladder style, so it kind of fell short there, and then they had the remix tour, kind of smushed them together to make Road Trip on Fire Edition, and it worked out so much better. I absolutely agree, you do need that Road Trip mode. It worked out so well, it changes up the challenges game to game. In fact, I'd actually suggest you could probably mix it up even a little bit more than they did in Road Trip. There's probably a few too many standard games, or they don't really change it up that much in Road Trip. Well, they do change the duos you face, which does help. And of course, the increased difficulty changes things up as well. They could have had a few more alterations, different rules and game conditions that you have, like the 3 points count for 4 and things like that, and over the top dunks count for 10. Some more game modifiers like that I think you could have done in Road Trip. That's something they could definitely bring back if they to do in a new Road Trip and a new NBA Jam game. And I love the idea of having an alternative in the traditional ladder or season mode, absolutely. And yeah, create a player. And one thing I'll suggest for create a player, because they had that in NBA Hang Time, and I did that back in the day with friends, of course. We'd all have our own player. Unfortunately, once you created a player on your ID number, you could only play with them. You couldn't then play with regular players again on that PIN number and that ID number, or what is it? The initials. So I'd like to be able to have a choice to play with or without that created player, but being able to have some kind of career mode and putting your face in the game, and I'm imagining that maybe it gets you to take photos of your face doing the different expressions for dunks and sticking out your tongue and things like that. And I'm thinking of that art style that On Fire Edition in 2010 used, with the player faces, the photos that just changed to reflect the expression. And you can have a lot of fun doing that.
And Andrew would have a blast with those thumbnail options for YouTube videos with his created character on the new NBA Jam with his tongue out, and he'd be using that for articles, for YouTube videos. I just see you having a blast doing that. Now, obviously, we don't want microtransactions in NBA Jam either. So if there is a career mode option, if they ever do come back, we'd want it to be super fair to the gamer. Same when it comes to like Road Trip.
I'd also put out there, don't do it playground style where you have to unlock the whole roster. By all means, have unlockable legends or some unlockable players that you play through, and it's fun to meet challenges and unlock them, like in 2010 and on Fire Edition. But don't have us have to collect cards outside of any kind of card collecting mode, of course, and have to unlock the whole roster and level them all up. That's just so much busy work.
Oh, no, 100%. I also want to point something out, too, before I continue. I'm not saying that a new Jam needs to have all of these modes and all of these ideas implemented. These are just ideas. right? Like these are just things that, would be cool to see in a new jam. I'm not expecting them to be all in, a new version of the game. But camera view options, instead of being stuck on one camera view, maybe give us 5 different camera views, right? Maybe somebody wants to play NBA Jam from a 2K style view, or from an NBA Live 95 isometric view, or from a broadcast view. Like, give us the option to have different camera views and maybe a little bit of customization behind them, whether it be key zoom, or,
Precise
height,
angle, yeah, angle,
zoom,
height, yeah.
etc., reverse angle, like stuff like that. The other piece would be roster editing. I think you and I would have a blast with this. It would give you the ability to possibly create season rosters from the past, retro rosters. Maybe they could have a roster share option in there. Maybe you just want to move players around in general. Maybe you want to pair 2 players that never played together before and played for completely different teams, and you want to put them on the same team and use them on the court. I think roster editing would be really cool in NBA Jam. And we haven't had that before. We haven't had a deep roster editing in a Jam game. So that's another thing I'd like to see. And then, so like with NBA Jam 2004, where they had the retro filters when you were playing like Bill Russell and whatnot, and you would go through this historical mode, and you'd be unlocking players and everything like that. And the challenges were deep, they were fun, they were awesome, and the presentation was really cool. So I think they could do a lot of cool things with that.
And of course, that game, it was just called NBA Jam, of course, but we refer to it as NBA Jam 2004. Actually, if you put the disc in a PC, it will actually say on the disc label is NBA Jam 2004, why they left it off the full title and just called it NBA Jam when there's already a more well-known NBA Jam, the original, out there. Well, just the way it goes sometimes, especially when the property changes hands, and of course then EA did it again with the 2010 reboot. But anyway, no, I absolutely agree. That they did that before even 2K did it, obviously. 2K did that for NBA's Greatest, but it does go back to Midway, Acclaim rather, doing that for Jam 2004. Expanding upon that, you really need to do that these days and just have that extra content to, especially if you have that at a higher price point, to really justify paying more for it. I mean, On Fire Edition was a cheaper game, and I think it was worth more than it even was. But to that point, as you said, these are ideas that you could possibly have to enhance NBA Jam for a new generation. I'm all on board with all of these ideas. But even if you brought On Fire Edition pretty much as is, and maybe made some AI tweaks, maybe added some new challenges to Road Trip, and updated the rosters, obviously, for the current day, you'd have a game that I think would sell extremely well.
Oh, yeah, and it's got to be marketed well, too, right?
Yeah.
Like, any return that they make, and EA has, like, they got to get Jam in people's heads. They got to get it, that the thought of NBA Jam in people's living rooms. They need to, have commercials that show consistently, promoting the game. It needs to be, the marketing team at EA Sports would need to be active on Twitter, consistently promoting this game. They need to have the sticks in the right hands during preview season, where they have the right people showing off the game, and then that's the game that and then that's the footage that gets people pumped to get the new Jam. And so marketing is a big aspect of it, and they didn't do a very strong job in relation to the NBA Live series as far as promoting it from NBA Live 16, 15, 18, 19, etc. I don't think the marketing was very strong.
Not at all, no.
For those games. So I would like to see a strong comeback for NBA Jam, not only from a graphics and gameplay and depth perspective, but from a marketing perspective.
Absolutely. We've talked about that so many times before, how EA really dropped the ball, not just celebrating its own history, obviously, but even just promoting a new game coming out in recent years. And they really need to step up there if they were to bring out a new game. Nothing is in the pipeline, unfortunately, or certainly nothing has been announced or even hinted at. In fact, the only update I saw on their socials in recent years was to mention that the service, which came online again very unexpectedly last year, as we've talked about, they put out an announcement saying that they were going off again. So that's about all they've done to address the future, or present indeed, of NBA Jam at this time. But no, we'd definitely love to see one. And those are some of our ideas. But let's turn it over to the community, Derek. And the Cobra Gaming says new modern ankle breakers, but with that classic NBA Jam overhype, would be dope. And yeah, that brings to mind what you said, things like size-ups and other great crossovers that still fit that NBA Jam style, but would just gives us a bit more control with ball handling.
No reason why that couldn't be implemented in a new jam, and for it to be implemented without ruining the classic fun of NBA Jam. I think that you could still have the, tapping the button to do a dribble move, whether it be like a crossover or a spin move, or, a quick flick of the joystick to initiate the spin move or crossover. Like, you could still keep that in the game, but something where you hold one of the triggers and push the joystick forward, and then all of a sudden they go into like a signature size up. That would be awesome. I mean, back in NBA 2K16, I know that's not an arcade game, but they had 4 size ups. They had front, back, left, and right. I'm not saying you have to go that crazy on an NBA Jam. In fact, I think that might be a little bit too much for a fast-paced arcade basketball game. But yeah, signature size ups are awesome when they're implemented right, like they were in NBA 2K16. I think the ankle breaker animations are always fun, where you pull off a sweet dribble move and your defender basically falls down. It's one of those moments, and it's something that people like to share on Twitter or on YouTube, etc. and whatnot. So yeah, I think it would be great for the game to have size ups and ankle breakers.
And I agree that you could just go with that simplicity. You don't need to have that many size-up moves in a jam game. I love the idea of using the triggers, and in fact, we actually saw that on Fire Edition, and I think it was in 2010 as well, being able to do those trick shots and the taunt dribbles by holding the triggers together and hitting those controls.
And keep those in there, please. Keep the trick shots.
Absolutely.
Bring the trick shots back, because those are a lot of fun.
But that just shows that you can add these little things to NBA Jam's gameplay. You can just add these extra mechanics on top of what's already there, these little fun things to do, and it doesn't detract from the experience at all. It only enhances it. So yeah, using those triggers like that could definitely be a way.
Let me give you an example really quick of something where they didn't ruin the gameplay by a new implementation. I'm going to use 2K for an example. They enhanced it. So in NBA 2K16 and 17, when you drive the lane and like you double tap to do like a spin move, you can't do like a spin move into a dunk after you've picked up your dribble. You can't do a hop step into a dunk on those 2 games. However, NBA 2K19, which my brother and I have been playing a ton lately, and we're really warming up to it with the slider tweaks and the rosters that we've customized and everything. But you can now, when you double tap that spin move button and you hold it down, and if you're using the right player and you hold down the shoot button following the spin, you can spin move with the dribble picked up into a throwdown, or jump stop into a throwdown. And you can do that also in NBA 2K23. That was an implementation. That was an improvement for a game that had similar mechanics in the past, right? But it didn't detract from the gameplay experience. It enhanced it. And so that's the way I look at, stuff like that. It's like, if you're going, you already had good dribbling mechanics and whatnot in NBA Jam on Fire Edition, the ability to cross over and spin move and everything. If you're going to add like a size up to it, it's not going to break the mechanics that are already in there. It's going to enhance the experience.
Definitely. And another example that I bring up before we move on is Freestyle Air in NBA Live 2005, expanding the rebounding controls there and the mid-air adjustments in Live 2005, building on existing mechanics, worked so well, didn't take anything away, didn't mess up the controls. I spoke about that in Way Back Wednesday recently, Freestyle Air. If done right, you can add those mechanics without ruining anything.
100%.
Next up, we have Sweet Jones _OTF talking about just wants to see improvements right across the board, basically, but also mentions possibly additional game modes such as 3-on-3.
So I find it interesting that he brought up 3-on-3, because I really enjoy NBA hoops with a Z, the one with Shaq on the cover from back in the day, basically the spinoff of NBA Showtime on NBC. And that game is 3-on-3, and I think it works really well, for that full court experience. And that game's interesting because it does have a season mode, and you can create a team in that game, and you can, add jerseys to the team, and, you could have like Kevin Garnett playing with Kobe Bryant and Vince Carter and everything. Like you can like build a custom team. I think that's a really cool addition for an arcade game. But anyway, so I think that it would be interesting to see a new NBA Jam with a 3-on-3 option, but I wouldn't want that to be the main option. Like I think that it needs 2-on-2, and then maybe an option for 3-on-3.
I agree. We have seen the 3-on-3 in the Jam lineage with the game with NBA Hoops, as you mentioned, and NBA Jam 2004 that Acclaim did, that we just talked about as well, also did 3-on-3, and it works okay. But I think 2-on-2 is that classic NBA Jam action that's its style, and of course Street had 3-on-3 as well. I do like the idea of having the option of having a 3-on-3 mode and getting, especially if you're doing online, getting more people involved in that. But I think for the size of the court and the style of gameplay, 2-on-2 works best. So it definitely has to be an option rather than the default.
Agreed, 100%. And I think that 2-on-2 just works so much better from a control perspective a lot of the time, especially if you want to play with somebody locally. If you're playing with one person, now you can control the whole team. But
exactly,
if you're right, if you're, if it's 3-on-3, you can no longer control the whole team with one person. So it definitely complicates things a little bit in that regard.
Next up, we have Thundershack with some great suggestions here. Create a player, add yourself or players missing from the game. Create a team or mixed duos like NBA Playgrounds. Maybe a slight step up graphically from OFE, but honestly that still looks good. More personalized jump shot, dunk, dribble, and celebration animations. And I just think those are some fantastic suggestions across the board. I love the idea of create a player. Actually, when I spoke to Cody Sawatsky, who unfortunately has since passed away, he was a developer on NBA Jam. He revealed it was originally going to have create a player. It's unfortunately one of those things that couldn't be properly implemented within the space of a year, because I only had that year to build on Jam 2010, of course. That would have been really cool, so I'd absolutely bring that back. As I said, though, I would have it not like Hang Time back in the day, where once you created a player, you were locked to using that player all the time, and just whatever NBA teammate you had on the team you chose. So that is a different way to handle that. But no, I love the idea of creating a player, creating a team, as you brought up as well, and being able to mix duos like Playgrounds. I like the Jam style sticks with real NBA duos, but the idea of having that custom team or created team where you could have your favorite players, maybe you can unlock players to add to that team, as we were talking about before. And of course, any graphical enhancements would be welcome. On Fire Edition was, as he said, holds up really well. I think that graphic style would still hold up very well, as he said. And more animations. No, I think those are just fantastic suggestions across the board.
No, I agree. And he mentioned something that I would love to see in the game, but with caution. So he mentioned signature celebrations, and I think that's an amazing idea. So, you throw it down on somebody, they go crashing to the floor, and Russell Westbrook does his rock the baby celebration, right? Or, you hit a three with James Harden and he does the stir of the pot celebration or something like that would be awesome. Like having signature celebrations. I say with caution though, because PBA Basketball Slam tried that. They tried to have celebrations after dunks or after big shots and everything. And it was really hard to implement in a fast-paced arcade game because of how long the celebration would take. Because you have to remember, when your player is celebrating, let's say you're controlling the player, you can't move him because he's in the middle of an animation. So when you're playing a fast-paced arcade game and where the ball is being inbounded almost right away, after the ball goes in, because that's what it is. It's a fast-paced arcade game. That's the point. It's supposed to be fast-paced, loose, clean fun. And it could cause delays. So you'd have to find a way to implement celebrations without making it frustrating on the sticks, because it's all about the gameplay. It's all about the flow. It's about the pace. So I would love to see it, but with caution.
No, that's a great point. And NBA Playgrounds did the same thing. I think there was a couple of signature celebrations, like Shaq danced and did the worm, I think, in the original NBA Playgrounds. And, of course, I'm taken back to NBA in the Zone when we connected on that. And one thing that we both observed was having the player running back every time on defense after a basket, that cut to the player running back on D was it just really interrupted the flow. And that's so important, especially in either a sim arcade hybrid like NBA in the Zone, obviously, but a straight out arcade game like Jam. You do need to have that flow and that quickness without too much delay with the inbounds. Absolutely.
Right. And with NBA Playgrounds, that was frustrating.
Yeah.
When Shaq would go and do the worm, because he wouldn't do it just once a game either. And it's not something that lasted 1 or 2 seconds. No. It was something that would stop play for 7 or 8 seconds. And it's do we really have to see this? Do we really have to see it for this long?
Can't skip it.
We have to see it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't skip it. So I would love to see something like that, but it would be tough to implement without interrupting the flow of the action.
And MF Don says, update NBA Jam on Fire Edition gameplay with the NBA Jam 2010 boss battles, remix, etc., all the modes. Would love that. Have all the teams have unlockable classic duos. Some great suggestions once again there. And yes, changing the gameplay up with Road Trip or Remix Tour and having those boss battles. The boss battles were dropped from on Fire Edition in favor of having that what they're doing with Road Trip. But I think you could definitely bring back the boss battles and just have those as mini games and backboard smash and things like that. I think would really spice up the game again without having to ruin or get rid of that core NBA Jam experience.
Right. No reason why you can't combine the greatness of NBA Jam 2010 with NBA Jam on Fire Edition for the new NBA Jam.
Exactly.
Why not have Road Trip and boss battles? Why not have a campaign mode similar to NBA Playgrounds where you can use players from different teams on the same team, and maybe there are challenges there, where you travel to a place and they say, oh, you can only use 2 centers or something like that, for your team. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to use Ben Wallace and Dwight Howard or something like that. There's definitely ways to implement the greatness and the great things from multiple past arcade games in one new game and not make it so the gameplay is negatively impacted. So I think that's a great idea.
And just to finish up here, I think it is important that you do approach it like the classic games and on Fire Edition in so much as that you can choose a different team for every game you play, even in a campaign or ladder mode, because being locked to that one team in Classic Campaign in 2010 was far too restrictive. And the whole point is that you can play with different teams and choose the matchup that works best for you against the specific opponent on the ladder or in the road trip or whatever. So absolutely don't be locked to a team unless it is a specific mode where that is the gimmick, if you will. But for the most part, the whole point of Jam was being able to pick different teams, different duos every time. So I think that is definitely the way to go.
I also want to bring up, it would be excellent if it was also released for the PC.
Oh yeah,
modders would go nuts on that game. It would be a ton of free promotion for EA Sports, for NBA Jam, etc. You would see a ton of mods released in the community. You would see footage all over YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, displaying the modded gameplay. And why has NBA 2K not gotten rid of the modding community yet? Why have they not, sent out, cease and desist for all of the modders and everything? Why have they not shut down the NLSC? Why have they not shut down the modding portion of the Operation Sports Forum? All that stuff. Why have they not shut down Dom2K, Dominus, and all these guys? Why? Because it is free promotion. It's NBA 2K. It's putting NBA 2K in people's heads. It's putting it in their living rooms and everything. They must love it.
Because people will double dip. Like, people who are playing on consoles and say, I'll get the PC version as well if I can play with these mods. We've seen it happen.
Right. And it's not even about the sales at that point in time. It's just about the free promotion, right?
Yeah, brand awareness.
Like, it's just, brand awareness. So, definitely, if it came out, we'd love to see it for PC.
But thank you to everybody who responded to that prompt. Obviously, Derek, there's a lot of passion for and interest in the possibility of a new NBA Jam game. People love the NBA Jam games, rightfully so. There's been some great releases over the years. And, I'd love to see it, as I said. Nothing Nothing planned for the 30th anniversary from EA's perspective, as far as we can see. So we're not anticipating one. But man, if ever there was a time to bring out one later this year, Derek, just saying.
Well, Andrew, what's crazy is they left the series on such a high note. Normally when a series goes away, it's usually because it's fizzling or it's failing. But everybody loved NBA Jam on Fire Edition and NBA Jam 2010. Like, they are talked about so fondly even today whenever people see footage of it or it's revisited or anything like that. They dropped the series after possibly releasing the greatest game ever in the series, which, has that ever happened before? I don't think that's ever happened before in basketball video games. But yeah, that's what's so disappointing about it is they should be celebrating it. There should be talk about, creating a new one. I can't believe it's been, like almost 13 years now. It has been 13 years now since we've received an NBA Jam game.
It's ridiculous. I thought they were setting themselves up to at least release a new one every few years. You could release it digitally, obviously. There's no need for physical releases. Obviously, you and I love to collect physical releases, and I absolutely would get a physical release of a physical copy of NBA Jam, a new NBA Jam game, if it was to come out. But to the point of releasing on PC, absolutely release it digitally. You don't need to go with that physical release if you want to keep overheads low, if you want to keep the price down so that it sells more copies, like they did with On Fire Edition. There's definitely ways of doing that, and just celebrating the lineage of the series. Since you own the license now, since you own that property, it's a missed opportunity for EA, especially when Live is dormant. They could have just said, okay, we're going to pivot and bring Jam back, because people love Jam, and we've got great bones in place to do that. But unfortunately, they fired pretty much the whole team after On Fire Edition came out, which is why some of that post-release updates and support didn't exist, because the team was just gutted. And that's EA for you, unfortunately.
That's ridiculous. So for the community, I did put out a mailbag question this week, but we're actually going to use that as our main topic for the next NLSC podcast, because there were so many responses to my question. It's a very deep topic, and it's related to what are the most annoying mechanics that you've ever experienced in basketball video games. And I love the responses that we've gotten, Andrew. And because of the number of responses and the detail people are putting into that, it makes perfect sense to make it the main topic for the next show, because I really want to take a deep dive into that.
Agreed. Yeah, no, there's a lot we can sink our teeth into with that discussion. Great responses, as you said, because over the years we have had some mechanics that are quite annoying, and plenty of great examples from the community, and we've got some ideas of our own, obviously. So we are going to table that until next week. But you brought up the idea of maybe we could talk a little bit more about what we're planning to play this month, because obviously you and I have plenty of games and some key ones in the rotation that are always in the rotation. But what's on your slate?
So for me, NBA 2K19 is going to get a lot of play for the rest of the month, because my brother and I are in the middle of our all-time fantasy draft season on the same team, where I'm locking on Shaq and he's using the rest of the players. And we're actually, I want to say 22 games into that season already, and we just started it, 12-minute quarters, and we're playing every game. So, and we're also working on that all-time fantasy draft roster still. So I'm making portraits. You were touching up things in relation to signatures, badges, attributes, all of that stuff, tendencies. So a lot of time is going to be spent on NBA 2K19 with my brother Nick. NBA 2K17 with my brother Mark. That's still his preferred game. So all three of us connect on that when he visits. So we have a season where we're using the Rockets, the 96-97 Rockets, using my Ultimate Classic Teams roster. We're all three playing on the same team, and we're playing against the greatest teams in NBA history. The league is full of them. So that's another game that's going to be in my rotation. And obviously still with NBA 2K19, it's still though 33 and I are playing our 94-95 season. So we're going to be playing that. We're going to have many more games before the end of the month. We've really, we played a lot of games recently, and it's been a lot of fun. So we're going to continue that. NBA 2K23, my brother and I have a Legends season on that, so we're going to be playing that. We're 62 games into the season, and we want to finish that season soon, so we can move on to the playoffs and take our team to the championship. And I'll share highlights at some point of that action. So right now, what, NBA 2K17, 2K19, 2K23. We also have a fun season. So my brother Nick is a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. He has been his whole life. So we're using the great Dragon Ball Z mods used by the community, and we're playing NBA 2K22, and we have a season on that as well. And I think we're roughly 20 games in. Co-op. So, it's Cell, Piccolo, Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, all of that stuff, and we're just beating up on the computer. We're playing on Hall of Fame, but our players are super powered with all of these badges and souped up athleticism and everything. And the highlights are great. We have stat goals, all of that stuff. So 2K22 has actually been in the rotation as well. And then, just connecting with the community, Andrew, connecting with you on classics, using Parsec, obviously the Stildo games, connecting with people on our Discord, etc. So yeah, those are my plans, I would say, probably for the rest of February.
So I have to ask, obviously, with the Dragon Ball Z characters, are you winning every game by over 9,000?
No, we're actually winning every game, I want to say, by 90 or 100. We're averaging over 200 points per game. But, when we do that, we're giving them all speed 99, quickness 99,
of course,
vertical 99. I mean, they can fly in the cartoon. So, and I've never been a fan of Dragon Ball Z. It's something that, even when we were growing up, it's something that he would be watching and be on in the background, but it's not something that I could get into. But I love playing these mods with him and playing that season with him because I know how much he's enjoying it. Right. And if you ever had a family member that, had a lot of the same interests as you and, you love them to death and everything, a lot of times it's their enjoyment that you find enjoyment in. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure.
So it's the fact that he's having such a blast with it that's making me have a blast with it. And the fact that we can just pull off some awesome highlights.
And it's different. It's something different. Up ratings.
Right, exactly.
No, I do love that. Don't give 2K any ideas about a Super Saiyan badge, though. That's we've got enough badges in the game already, so we don't need to go Super Saiyan in the with.
I feel like there's already badges that kind of are overpowered that kind of make your guys. Yeah, I mean, they'll probably have a thing in there with 2K at some point where your hair turns yellow, or whatever, like Vegeta does or Goku or whatever, and then that'll be something that'll be implemented in a future game, I'm sure.
Yeah, power levels and everything. We'll see that in the future. But no, I love that. I love the variety you've got going on there, and it really has inspired me in recent years to try and branch out. Obviously, I get really stuck on a game, as you know, creature of habit, and once I really get hooked on a game, I am hooked on a game. To that end, 2K14, my career is still in the rotation. I'm almost at the end of the 5th regular season. Let's see. Terry Hansen is out for the season. Trevor Booker is out for the season. Carmelo Anthony is out for another couple of weeks with a severe ankle sprain, so I'm basically carrying the team, averaging 50 to 60 points in the last couple of months, just trying to carry the team because there's not a lot of scoring outside of that. I think Brandon Rush is now our starting small forward at 65 overall, filling in for Melo. So it's kind of rough. The games are starting to get a bit competitive again unless I really go off. Actually scored 83 points against Kobe, LeBron, and the Lakers. And, of course, I did the Kobe and LeBron teaming up video, which you can check out on the YouTube channel. That story there, the latest in the story series from my 2K14 My Career. Also, want to get into some 2K15 My Career to do a Way Back Wednesday on it. It's the last one that I haven't really, from that era, that I haven't looked at in depth because the character was such a jerk that it kind of turned me off wanting to play as him. So that is something we're going to revisit. I've been playing some 2K17 recently, some retro matchups, and even the default teams are kind of retro, or certainly from a few years back now. It's sort of an older NBA as it is. Also trying to get back into some Live 2004 and Live 06 again, Live 10. I think we should connect on some Live 10 again and play some more of those retro matchups.
Please, yes. Oh, I also forgot to mention, because you brought up Live, my brother and I do have a season on NBA Live 2000 that we'll be playing either tonight or tomorrow. That's that Legend season, against regular NBA teams co-op. So that is in the rotation as well, as is Inside Drive 2003. So yeah, I'm playing some of the super classics as well. But no, NBA Live 10, every time we connect on it, we've had fun. There has never been a session, and we've connected dozens of times. There's never been a session on NBA Live 10 where it wasn't fun.
And now we know that co-op is just as fun as head-to-head as well over Parsec.
Yeah, and that's our preferred method of play now. I think co-op works so well, and we work together through towards a common goal, and most of the time we win because I feel like we're on the same page. We're really good as a team, kind of like on this podcast, Andrew. We're a good team.
This is true. I feel that when we do lose, the very rare occasions that we do lose, not to toot our own horn here, but it's because the CPU is cheating, the mechanics are broken, or we're just trying for highlights a bit too much.
You mean like when we played NBA Live 2001 and I mistakenly put us against Kevin Garnett and the Timberwolves? And everything that Kevin Garnett did on the floor was, Super Saiyan? Is that what we want to call it?
Yeah.
Everything that Kevin Garnett did on the floor was absolutely super, and we got our butts handed to us. I think we lost that game by like 30. That was I felt like the game was against us. There, it's like we couldn't do anything right, and we were missing everything, and Kevin Garnett was just killing us.
That line from Montel Jordan's title theme, how you going to win, was never more appropriate than that game.
Yeah, instead of how you're going to win, it's you're not going to win.
Yeah, it's made it very clear. But those are some fun plans, I think, and once again, throw it up to the community and let us know in the comments and on social media and in our forum what you've been playing and what you're planning to play, because it's always interesting to talk about what we are playing and see what other people are playing too, because we're not the only people, Derek, that are going back to classics. Obviously, 2K23, very popular, as you can see from the top 10 plays this week and every week. A lot of people loving 2K23, which is great to see. We always want the latest game to satisfy and indeed impress and really be an enjoyable experience, but plenty of people going back to the classics, and we are all about that.
And my God, that top 10 this week might be the best one ever.
That top play, yeah.
That number one play by Diabees 2K of a full court shot by Chris Anderson, and it goes off the glass, but LeBron catches it in the air like it was an alley-oop and does a windmill and throws it down. I've never seen that. And it's from NBA 2K14 from, I want to say he's playing on PS4. I have never seen that play before in basketball video game history. The comments on the YouTube are basically like, that's the play of the century. Yeah. That's the play of the year. That's etc. People recognize that as a very rare and amazing play. So yeah, keep submitting those highlights for the top 10, and keep letting us know when you are what you're playing, and if you've uploaded content, tag the NLSC. Let us know, and we'll check it out.
It's always great to see those plays, those very rare plays, and that is indeed a very rare play. I've never seen that before either. But to that point, Derek, there's a lot of times when I'm just forfeiting my three-point percentage these days in my career, tossing it up from half court or beyond half court at the buzzer, because one of these days it's going to go in, and that'll be in the top 10. I guarantee it.
I wonder how many people, because we have a lot of participants in the top 10 plays of the week, I wonder how many people think about the top 10 at the end of quarters. Like when they pass it in, there's only like a second to go and they have to heave it from full court. Are they thinking, man, if this goes in, we're going to submit it for the top 10?
I hope so. Well, Kenny had one this week.
Because we think that way. He did. Yeah, Kenny Young did. We think about that. Like we say top 10, by the way, every single time there's a heap.
Yeah.
When we're playing, me and my brother. So the community must be doing it as well.
It's going to be very hard to beat that Michael Finley one, though, that you did against me. That's still, I think, that's
I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. That's one of the best plays ever. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It was actually Michael Finley that made the shot. But a spin move into a three-quarter court heave that absolutely made the net blow up.
To win the game.
NBA Live 10. To win the game. It was just unreal. And you were such a good sport about it because you were on the losing end because of that shot. But how can you not appreciate that?
Yeah, it's just so ridiculous. It's just so spectacular that it's like, you know what, you got me with that one, and that's I'm glad to have witnessed that, because that was it stings a bit, obviously, being on the losing end of a shot like that. But what do they say? Appreciate greatness. Right. Exactly. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, we thank you for tuning in and invite you to join us again next week, either on the NLSC, m-live.com, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media. Of course, that's where you can get in touch with us and stay up to date with all of our content. So, Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Absolutely. You can reach me on Twitter where I'm the most active at D for3G and at D for384. I am on the NLSC as well, D for3 as a team member over there, and also on YouTube, D for3.
I am Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. Now, Instagram is NLSC Basketball. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, nb-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.